So, today we're going to dive into this really fascinating idea how two tiny words, just a small addition by translators into a sacred text, can completely flip its meaning on its head. And it's a change that, according to the analysis we're breaking down, has these massive implications for how a person connects with the divine. So, here's the central puzzle, right? Can a simple little translation choice do more than just tweak a verse? The whole argument we're looking at here suggests it can actually break it, like fundamentally, locking its meaning in the distant past and making it pretty much inaccessible for anyone reading it today. Okay, here's the verse in question. Quran, chapter 2, verse 186. Now, I want you to focus on those two words in the brackets, O Prophet. The thing is, those words aren't actually in the original Arabic text. They're an addition, something some translators put in. And according to this analysis, that small addition introduces a huge contradiction. So what's the big deal with adding these words? Well, it all comes down to the verse's unique structure, and what gets totally lost when you stick a middleman right where the text suggests there wasn't one to begin with. You know what makes this verse so unique is its context. It just pops up, right, in the middle of a passage talking about rules and laws. And God speaks directly, in the first person, I am truly near, without that usual instruction you see elsewhere, like say. And that structural choice feels really intentional, you know? It's like it's designed to create this feeling of a direct, unmediated connection. This table really gets to the heart of the argument. So look at the left column. When you add, O Prophet, you put a mediator right back in the middle. The verse suddenly becomes this historical event. But now look at the right. Without those words, the mediator is gone. The message is timeless, it's for everyone, everywhere. The whole point of the verse just completely shifts. All right, let's look at the second half of the verse now because the argument really starts to build from here. The analysis we're looking at suggests this isn't just a simple translation choice, but it's part of a much bigger pattern, the control of access to the divine. So this is the promise that follows, and what's so wild here is that the original Arabic is just so open. There are no conditions, no prerequisites, no special formulas you have to say. It's just this simple, direct statement, when you call, I respond. Period. On the left, you've got the verse's open invitation. Any caller, anytime, sincerity is all that matters. But then you look at the right, and you see what the analysis calls the institutional requirements. And bam, suddenly, calling upon God becomes a specific ritual. Sincerity gets swapped out for technique. And that direct access, it's not so direct anymore. It now depends on a scholar giving it the green light. And you have to ask, why does this happen? The analysis poses this really key question. If anyone, anywhere, can connect with God directly, what is the role of the religious middleman? The idea here is that controlling access isn't some mistake, but it's actually a structural necessity for that kind of institution to survive. Okay, this all leads to a pretty obvious question. If this contradiction is supposedly so clear, why don't more people talk about it? Well, the answer, according to this analysis, has less to do with how smart we are and a lot more to do with how dependent we are on the systems already in place. According to the source, to really see the verse for what it says, you'd have to make a few pretty big shifts in your thinking. It means accepting direct accountability, no go-between. It means prioritizing what a text means over just performing it as a ritual. And it means putting the Quran's authority above inherited culture. And look, those are some huge shifts in thinking. So the argument isn't that people are blind to the contradiction. It's more that we're all kind of wired to depend on the frameworks we inherit, on the validation we get from our communities. It's just really, really hard to question something when your entire support system is built on accepting it. The analysis even brings up a specific Quranic concept for this. It's not about ignorance, but something called covering. It's basically this idea of choosing what's familiar and comfortable, even with its flaws, rather than facing a truth that's clear but might, shake things up. All right, now for the final piece of this whole puzzle. We need to zoom out and look at the verse that comes right before 2:18, because when you put these two side by side, something absolutely fascinating is revealed, what the source calls a structural neutralizer. So first up, you have verse 185. It lays out what the Quran is supposed to be. It's not just a book for chanting. It's defined as guidance for how to live your life and a criterion for telling right from wrong. And then, bam, right on its heels, with no break, comes verse 186, this sudden, direct, personal message about God's immediate nearness with no mediator needed. This is the big reveal.
The argument is that the placement of verse 186 is totally intentional. It's like a built-in safety switch. Just at the moment when you might be tempted to turn the guidance from the verse before into an empty, rigid ritual, verse 186 cuts in and says, nope, you don't need to do all that. I am already near. It's designed to neutralize our very human tendency to ritualize everything.
This quote just perfectly captures the core idea. In other words, the guidance in the text is supposed to shape you, your actions, your conduct. Your conduct doesn't summon God. And why not? Because God is already there. So let's just quickly run through the main points of this whole analysis. A tiny addition can completely break a verse's primary function. The idea of open access to the divine is a genuine threat to institutional control. Our own reliance on systems can actually hide a text's plain meaning from us. And finally, some texts might even have their own built-in safeguards against being misinterpreted. It's a pretty powerful analysis, all built around a single verse. And it leaves us with a much bigger question, doesn't it? What are the small, unseen structures in the language we all use every day? The little assumptions, the additions, the frameworks that are shaping our world without us even realizing it. What might we all see if we just started to look a little closer?